You can always spot a British foreigner in Australia for the first time, and no, it's not the accent, it's not our inability to handle the sun, it's the look of absolute bewilderment on our faces when we fill up the car for the first time, pay a utility bill, or even get on a bus in Brisbane. I know that look because I had that look. And so the longer I've lived here, I've realised there are a whole heap of things that are way cheaper than they would be in the UK. So consider this your cheat sheet, and let's get into number one. MOT, standing for Ministry of Transport, is an annual safety check you have to get done on your car in order for your car to be legally roadworthy. And it's something that you have to do in the UK, whether you like it or not. As a uni student, I hated it because I was broke, so I really didn't want to pay for it. But I was very surprised to hear that in Australia, this isn't really a thing. But in Queensland specifically, you do have to get a safety check done on your car if you're going to sell it to someone else. But then once you've got it, you don't have to get a mandatory roadworthy check on it each year. Now, the maximum fee for a car MOT in the UK is £54.85, which is this much in Australian. So it might not sound much, but cost of living crisis with all of your other living expenses, rent, mortgage payments, utility bills, petrol, it all adds up. It feels like I'm getting away with something. It feels like I'm winning a very, very small portion of the lottery each year. Do you know what's also super cheap in Australia and actually the rest of the world? It's hitting that little like button there. Number two, utility bills, gas, water, electric, not broadband. We'll get to that. Now, this is going to cause a bit of controversy in the comments because some people will tell me, no, gas and electric and water's through the roof in Australia. Let me tell you, not having to pay for council tax when you rent in Queensland is a huge thing. We were renting a much smaller apartment in London in the UK with black mold, might I add. We were paying £1,300 a year in council tax. Okay, that's the equivalent of rates in Australia. When you rent, you don't pay that, so we're already saving about $2,600 a year alone. Thank you. Now, I will say, when we lived in Ealing in London, our gas bill was through the roof. We were very poor, struggling actors. And so we would set, my wife and I, an hour block each day that we would have our radiators on, and tell me why we were still paying like £100 to £120 a month in gas. Absolutely unbelievable. Anyway, now the plot twist here is broadband is weirdly more expensive. We pay about $95 a month for 500 megabytes per second of internet speed, £22 more than we were paying in London, so it's all right. Okay, thanks to Wise for sponsoring this video. So this one's a sneaky one because it's not always cheaper just because you moved here. I'm talking about sending money internationally, which if you're a foreigner like me, you will be doing a lot of. Because here's the thing, when I first moved to Australia, I was sending money back to the UK through my bank. There'd be a $0 fee on screen, which looked totally fine. But what the bank doesn't tell you is that they quietly give you a worse exchange rate than the real one, and then they skim the difference before you ever see it. Whereas Wise uses the actual mid-market rate. No markup hidden in the numbers, and they actually show you the fee up front before you confirm anything. It's that simple. Oh, and 70% of Wise transfers arrive in under 20 seconds, so your mum gets the birthday money before she thinks you forgot. Yes. So if you're sending money internationally and you're not using Wise, you might voluntarily be paying a fee you don't actually need to be paying. Your first transfer of up to 1,000 Australian dollars is fee-free using the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code on screen. Be smart, get Wise. But nothing prepared me for online marketplaces. Australians, and this is statistically true, have more disposable income than Brits. And so when people do sell stuff on, online marketplaces here, I notice they go for way cheaper than they would do in the UK. Say someone's selling a games console in the UK for £200. Well, you'd quite often find that same games console on an online marketplace in Australia for $200. They look like the same amount of money, psychologically, but then you convert the currency and you realize you're paying 400 Australian dollars for it in the UK and only about £100 in Australia. You're saving so much money with the Australian dollar being worth less than a British pound. So that's my theory, and I can buy lots of my camera gear and my lights and my microphones. Like, I've got this microphone above me, and it costs me a third to a half less than I'd be paying in the UK. Right, number 5, sunscreen. In the UK, sunscreen is a holiday product. We will pretty much only buy it unless we're going to Mykonos or Spain, Mallorca, and generally if the UV level is below 3. You don't really need to wear sunscreen unless you want to for anti-aging purposes. Whereas here, it is an absolute necessity. As I'm sure you're aware, and I blabber on about in these videos, Australia has some of the highest rates of skin cancer in the entire world. So when you're buying it here, it makes sense to buy it in bulk so you don't have to keep making those short trips to the supermarket to buy little bottles like you would do in the UK. Now, this is a very well-known brand in Australia, very respected brand, and as you can see, it is 1 litre and it's so big that it comes with an actual pump. Never have I seen this in the UK. This cost me $30.99, okay? I go onto a well-known UK supermarket website. You only get 400 ml and yet you're paying £11.50, but we're actually paying $30.99 for an entire litre in Australia, so it's so much cheaper. Number 6, outdoor fitness. Right, this is a reach, I know. However, speaking from personal experience living here, it is 10 times easier to do any of those outdoor activities in Australia because most of the year the sunshine is gorgeous. And yes, I'm talking about other states in Australia too, but it's also designed for it more. The paths are wide and long and they're decked out with trees. There's bins, there's water fountains, which they call bubblers in Queensland. Pretty quirky. There's lots of benches if you need a rest. If you get a bit peckish on the way, you'll often find these electrical barbecues that are free. You used to have to pay for them, they're free now. So you're probably thinking, Sam, how does this make it cheaper than the UK then? Doesn't make any sense. Well, the experience is a much higher standard, and that, I think, makes it cheaper. Can you tell I'm struggling to make this video? Number 7, American things. And what I've noticed is a huge amount of American-made products being sold in Australia. So to give you some specifics, things like vitamin C serum, American. Whitening strips, we can't even get this brand in the UK, but we can get it here in Australia. I mean, we've got much tighter rules on, oral health products in the UK. A lot of the vitamins we buy here are imported from America. Anyway, let's keep going because this next one is going to make a lot of British people very angry. Number 8, petrol. Petrol in Australia is almost half the cost than it is in the UK. But wait, it gets better. First time I filled up here, it came to about 50 Australian dollars. And then I had a look at what it converted to back in the UK, £25. And I thought, what? I've never paid £25 to fill up an entire car tank before. Usually I'm paying 40 or 50. I was sitting at home feeling like I'd stolen. But I hadn't. That's just what the petrol has consistently been like throughout the year. I mean, apart from the start of the year. But in the UK, it is almost twice the cost. But wait, it gets better. You know the tyre pressure pumps that you get in the UK? You have to put 25p or 50p and now you can tap on them. In Australia, it is completely free because they thought, look, you're at our servo. We're not going to charge you for air, for literal oxygen that we just push into a tyre. And I respect that. Thank you, Australia. Number 9, public transport. We're talking train, we're talking ferry, we're talking bus. Right, coming from London prices where I thought £1.80 for a bus fare for, the hour was pretty good. And then seeing that Brisbane do 50 cents on all public transport for the hour, 25p. What? So I could literally go from Brisbane city centre to Gold Coast, which is a different city, and it will cost me 25p. Come on, need I say more? This is nowhere near what I mentally budgeted for because Maddie and I, we did not have a car for our first few months living in Australia. They hadn't even introduced the 50 cents public transport fares in Brisbane, and we were still saving money on public transport. It was so refreshing. Anyway, number 10, coffees and meals out. Australia has this beautiful reputation, to Brits anyway, that brunch and coffee is about half the cost of what it would be in the UK. You might go out for breakfast and for 2 people for a full plate and a cup of coffee, it might cost £30, 60 Australian dollars. In Australia, it often costs 30 Australian dollars, £15. You save it twice as much. But the cafe culture in Australia is world class. If you go to Melbourne, where literally the best coffee exists, you will pay about half the price you would in the UK, but you get the world's best cup of coffee. Not only that, but chefing here is just brilliant. You get avo on toast and you think this is quite plain, and here it's like flavour explosion. You pay $10 for it, what? Anyway, I eat out here casually, far more than I do in the UK, because I can actually afford it. So you do not sacrifice quality for cost here. And that's a huge takeaway. But you might be thinking, Sam, what's better than 10 things being cheaper than they are in the UK? Well, how about 8 things that are free compared to what they are in the UK? So if you want to keep the adventure going, click this video here. I know you're going to love it. Thanks for watching to the end. See you in the next one. Bye.